Hello, world. This is the Know Your Place podcast, and this is episode 53. I am your host, Charles Altendorf, and today on this episode, I, well, how should I put this, my audience? I wanted to take a moment to, well, I've done an episode where I talked about French novels and how that shaped my view of French culture and things like that. Novels set in France. And then I did another episode a couple weeks back where I talked about different things from British culture that had influenced how I viewed British culture. Well, in this week's episode, I've decided to take that concept and apply it to German culture. And this is a bit of a tricky one for me because obviously, if you've heard, my last name is Altendorf, and uh, I was part of a German American Heritage Society when I was in high school and early college. And yeah, it's a tricky one because part of it, I feel like my judgment of what German culture is clouded by a sort of Americanized version of it, or sort of I can't properly tell you because it's too Americanized. But I am gonna go ahead and give it a shot, and sort of talk about what shapes what I really think of when I think of Germany or German. This is German to me. So the first thing, of course, we think of, I would say most Americans think of, is the chain Hofbrauhaus or the Oktoberfest parties that seem to be springing up all over the country like wildfire. And there is a certain party element to German culture. Sort of Oktoberfest is the epitome of it, but a lot of people don't know that Oktoberfest is sort of the Bavarian, and not to say that I'm sure every country has its parts, right? Obviously some of the things I referenced about the British culture and French culture were very London or Paris focused or different. I didn't go through and say, well, this is very much what I mean by Cornwall or the North Midlands, something like that. But when we talk about Oktoberfest and the parties of that, that is a very Bavarian thing, obviously. And I think the Bavarians have a bit of they are known for a bit of a party. Not to say that other parts of Germany don't have their thing, like, there's the carnival fashion stuff. But, it's just Bavarians are really known for that particular kind of party. But so yeah, but that's I think those two things really barely scratch the surface of German culture. And I'm going to talk about this a little more towards the end of the podcast. But when I think of German culture, two things really stick out to me. It's either super serious, like more serious than anything's ever been, or so corny to a ridiculous extent, like just crazy outrageous for the sake of being outrageous. And you don't often find a lot of in between with that's what I think of when I think of German culture. And I'll bring this home a little bit later. But yeah, so the very first exposure, well, besides my family exposure, I had to sort of modern Germany is actually, well, it is a quasi movie about Germany, but it's not really a German movie. It's called The Bourne Supremacy, the second one in the series with Matt Damon. They shot large parts of it in Germany and Berlin, and it was a big film grant, I guess, that they got to shoot the movie there. But it really sort of encapsulated what modern Germany is like. There's very modern buildings. There's he's going between these really fancy hotels, and he's dodging on the train and cars and trying to get in and out of places. And it's really crazy because also, you have a sort of stereotype. There's an assassin trying to kill him, and he's a German assassin, and he's supposed to be like super excellent, right? And of course that's what a stereotype would be, right? Is that the Germans are very focused on what they're focused on. If you have a German assassin, they're going to be a very tough assassin to elude, And I remember, actually, this is very funny. There was an infomercial that used to run in America about 10 years ago, I guess now. And it had this guy on there, and it was for this product called the Sham Wow. And it was some kind of really absorbent product or whatever, but it was really ridiculous because the guy, the guy who did the infomercial, he's like, and it's made by the Germans. They always make good stuff. And I mean, I just about died. That it pretty much encapsulated the way German culture is viewed, at least in America. I can't speak for necessarily how it's viewed in other places other than, especially in the 30s and 40s when I read British novels, or even the 50s. The stereotype of a German wasn't necessarily evil per se, but always a schemer or something, was the stereotype that I really picked up on from this book I read, The Great Impersonation, written by Oppenheimer, or Oppenheim, who's an English author, even though his name sounds, German to me. But anyway, it was a very interesting book and sort of highlighted it. And if you look at Monty Python, they did this skit called the Bavarian Skit, and it's just, I mean, it's basically a Bavarian restaurant that's absurdly Bavarian to a crazy extent. And yeah, it's sort of the stereotype of being completely over the top into something. Like it is that thing of that thing. It's almost a ridiculous amount. And let's see, there was another. Of course, also John Cleese in his show Faulty Towers had these German visitors, and it was a really ridiculous episode, just completely silly. But yeah, so when we talk, sort of another thing that's been shaping my view of Germany lately is actually reading a German author. And that's not to say I've read a few things in German here and there, and I've watched some videos and stuff. But the first real author I've been able to read a lot of his work from that's German is Erich Maria Remarque, and I've been talking about him. I feel like constantly, but his novels are just so amazing. And he wrote this book. Now everybody talks about his book All's Quiet on the Western Front, but he also wrote another book, and it's called The Three Comrades. And this book is basically set in Berlin after the end of World War One, and sort of what it's like living in Berlin, coming back from World War One as a veteran. And it is just an amazing, amazing book. It just gives you like a snapshot of the lifestyle. And in there, there's so many things on display, like of course they're working together and they build a super awesome car, and there's the stereotype of German automobiles. And then I think another stereotype that I kind of picked up on that kind of emerged is not to say that other women aren't tough from other countries. I mean that there's things to be said, but yeah, the main character falls in love with this girl, and she's like almost a tomboyish kind of girl. She loves to ride in cars, and she likes to go out in the middle of the night and do crazy things. And she has a sickness, like a leukemia like sickness, but it's trying to stay out of the hospital because she doesn't want to go to the hospital, the sanatorium or whatever. And it very much is epitomizes the stereotype. My aunt is she's of Germanic descent, although she grew up in the UP in Wisconsin. But I consider her kind of a tough woman. Like kind of a tough woman. And all these people I know from my German American club, I kind of consider tough people. So it's kind of I don't know. I kind of see it as German femininity is almost kind of a tough thing. I'm sure I'm gonna get some hate in the comments section for that, but anyway, that's what I sort of see on display in this book I've read, and sort of throughout different things I've read. Now, So now that I've talked about Remarque, let's see. Also in that novel, like I said, the racing cars, and they also do drink a lot, and that is part of German culture. People do consider them to be drinkers. So and they drink a lot in that novel. They drink all the time whenever they're doing anything, they're working or anything on cars. Now, sort of the next thing I think about when I think about German culture is is a particular artist who just turned 80 this year, and his name is Heino. And if you've never heard of Heino, you really should hear of Heino because he is an artist that has been making money and been relevant in Germany since like 70. He's been relevant for a very long time, and he pretty much is. I don't know how to describe it other than he is German. He is very German looking and writes about very German things in his songs. He has blonde hair, blue eyes, and loves to rock these oversized sunglasses everywhere he goes. He is just absurd. He it's what I'm talking about. With German culture, it's like an absurd caricature. So it goes so deep. There's no mild doing German. There's no mild German culture. It's all crazy all the time. So Heino, the song I like from him is called Die Schwarze Barbara. And this is another thing about German. It's like simple yet extreme, right? So like this song Die Schwarze Barbara, basically he's just talking about he's crushing on this girl because he likes her black hair, and his wife had black hair too. So but it's just that's what it is. It's just a simple song. It's not some crazy like, I don't know how to describe it. Like I guess U2 wrote a song once, "Stuck in a Moment That You Can't Get Out of," and that was like the title of the song. That would never fly in a German song. Okay, that is not simple enough. That is not is cut to the chase. That's how it is. And then the another band I wanted to talk about was Die Artze, which means the doctors, and they're like the doctors of music. And they are a punk band. They're a punk band that's been popular in Germany for a couple decades. But their very first hit, and this is what I want to talk about when I talk about the difference between the sort of like there's either the super serious Germans or the crazy absurd level caricature Germans. There's not a lot of in between. It's either that or that. It's like so caricature it's almost not funny crazy. But if you listen, two of their biggest hits kind of symbolize this to me. Their biggest hit was a song, or their very first hit was called Schrei nach Liebe, Cry for Love. And it's about this guy who um, is like a discontented youth and is going down the wrong path, starts kind of acting almost like a Nazi almost. And this was written in '93, so he that's what this song is about. And he it's a very intense song. I mean, that's a lot of intense moments. Like in the song, it says like you're wearing army boots, but we know deep down it's that your parents don't love you, and this is a cry for love, or you don't have your friend. These aren't your real friends, and you're just doing this because it's a cry for love because you're hurt. It's like super intense, but it's just like a regular old punk song with these really intense lyrics, you know. And then another hit of theirs was a song called Unrockbar, and this song is silly because it's just like totally ridiculous about this guy who needs to break up with his girl, and it starts out in like a pop beat, and then they bust into crazy sort of their more well-known punk style, but it's in the music video is hilarious for this song. But it starts out in he basically has to break it off with his girlfriend because or his fiance because she's not rockable. You know, that's what un rock bar is supposed to mean. She's not rock. She's not punk. You know, and this is so it's just crazy corny at that point, right? It's just like absurd that it's gone to this degree. You know, that he's so punk. He's so German punk. He's got to break it off with his girlfriend because she's not punk. His fiance, excuse me, because she's not punk enough. You know, that characterizes it. And both these songs were hits by the same band. You know, and that's what German culture is. It's just that wildness. You know, and then Rammstein, of course. I'm pretty sure almost all of my audience has heard of Rammstein if they haven't heard of any of the other things I've mentioned coming up to this. And I want to look at two of their hits that are similar to sort of what Die Artze did. So one of their hits, Du Hast, is their most famous song, and I'm pretty sure everybody here's probably heard it. Well, both of these songs are probably their two most famous songs outside of Germany. But Du Hast, is again another very intense song. But again, it's a very simple song. In fact, I used it to help tutor somebody in German to help learn German because it just goes do you have me or you hate me because it can mean the same thing in German, to have or to hate. And it's there's so much deepness there. It's like a crazy level of deepness for just a regular old song that hit the charts on the rock charts. And not to say there's not songs like these that come out every once in a while in America or England, but I don't feel like it gets that level that often, And then another hit by Rammstein was America, which is famous for basically saying America's culture has taken over the world and erased their identity. So it's like it's a very absurd level of corniness. Like they say, next we're going to be singing about Mickey Mouse in the White House. We're all living in America. America is wunderbar. And, like Coca-Cola, Wonderbra. It's just like totally ridiculous level of, they took this to the craziest extent. And that's what German is. It's like it's a very simplistic, intense, or it's like crazy cartoonish. Yeah. So sort of some other things I want to talk about. Again, if we're talking about the crazy cartoonish side, you should watch the movie Goodbye Lenin. The premise of that movie is basically that this guy is living on the east side of Berlin, and he decides he's going to protest and whatever, and this night, and his mother sees him at the protest, and she's like the communist of East Berlin, like very, very into the communist cause, and she has a heart attack because she sees him in this, or no, a stroke, and after she has her stroke, the wall falls. So so they are told to keep her out of stress and try and make her life like it is. Like try not to change her life into the new Western style. And you can imagine the chaos that ensues. And this movie is just totally absurd and ridiculous because of that. And it's pretty funny. And the very last thing I wanted to get into through how I experienced German is through the desserts and bread. No, yeah, I have favorite German dishes. Obviously, I really love rouladen. I love the red cabbage, and I like sauerkraut, of course, and metwurst and bratwurst and the simple stuff. But when I think of German, I think of their desserts like a very, intricate dessert like a black forest cake or a strudel or a German chocolate cake. Very intricate kind of dessert. And when I think of I think of the bread like rye bread or pumpernickel, very intricate, filling, dense bread, very dense. Everything, all the food from Germany is very dense, and I love it. I can't get enough of it, and it just makes me. I guess it's a deep connection to my ancestors because I am mostly of Germanic heritage, so That's what I need sometimes to get me going. Anyway, that's German culture in a nutshell. Feel free to disagree with me, but that's how I perceive it. So that's my experiences of it, and thanks for listening to Know Your Place for 53 episodes. See you next time.